Annick, it's a pleasure to have you on. We were talking about before recording how I think we're both recovering from Startup Fest. It was a long week. So it's really a pleasure to have you on. We have so many areas to talk about. And I think one place to start is obviously you're a serial entrepreneur. You started multiple companies and, we'll talk about how that led you to starting your own fund. We'd be curious as to like the story behind starting multiple companies. Was it something from an early age as you always wanted to do or just kind of stumbled into it?
Yeah, it's a great question. And first of all, thanks for having me. It's lovely to chat with you today. Um, so, as women, I think we aren't so much encouraged to go into the entrepreneurial side of things. I don't know if it's from how we're raised or how we ourselves perceive things, but for me, it was never a career path that I actually thought about. And so I went to school in California in international business. And when I came back, I first started working for Matrox Graphics, which was a tech company. And to me, I was going to stay at Matrox or any other tech company for the rest of my life and climb the ladder and, become this like superstar VP or something. And in 2003, I had the chance to move to San Francisco for a year. And that just sort of jolted my entire life into a new direction. San Francisco in the early 2000s was effervescent with new venture startups. I mean, it was the beginning of PayPal. It was the beginning of Amazon. It was the beginning of so many companies that became giants later on. And it was also the ascent of venture capital and everything that was going on in the Silicon Valley was just fascinating. And I came back in 2004 in Montreal, and I was a bit amazed by the lack of digital transformation that our own businesses had here. And I thought, just ordering the stuff online in the early 2000s was like almost impossible in Canada. So we were all ordering from the States. I don't know if you remember that time. Maybe you weren't born, but no, I'm joking. But I think from there on, I just decided that something had to be done. And it was the same thing with Accelia Capital later on. You want to be a vector of change, then you need to just get to work and get it done. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. And my life as an entrepreneur, I was a founder and a CEO for 10 years. It's not easy, but I certainly learned from it and it got me to here. And so, really, the spark was that 1 year in San Francisco.
Yeah, it's a great story. And maybe as a small anecdote, like I worked in 2003 at a small company called Corico Imaging, which was a competitor to Matrox. We were much smaller, I think. So, but I remember driving by Matrox every day because the offices were really close to each other. So I find that that's a small story. And going back to that time, working here, like you said, it was very nascent, right? I was starting to work in digital marketing space, and there was nothing. It was like this blank canvas essentially. So it's really cool that you came and you saw that opportunity. What do you think in terms of like lessons as an entrepreneur you took away? Particularly I want to say from the perspective of a woman starting a company, which back then was like today it's rare, but even back then it was you must have been like people must have looked at you like, who is this person, right? So curious as to like any lessons you took away from starting companies as a woman.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's possible, right? And I'm so encouraged because you're right. Back then, I was one of the very rare, female founders at the time. We're almost 20 years back. But if I look at today, the statistics are super encouraging. It's almost a third of new tech companies that are co-founded by at least one woman, and so that's phenomenal. For me, it just means that the entire ecosystem is going in the right direction. They're still not getting enough of the venture capital dollars, but we'll talk about that later. And so the first thing is that it's possible to do it, and it's possible to succeed, and it's also okay to fail. Because we hear that often that being a tech entrepreneur is tough. Most tech companies, even the ones that do get funding, not all of them succeed. And so, but you take lessons from every single curveball that's thrown at you. You grow from it, and then my second time around being an entrepreneur, my second business, I was way better at it. I knew much better what I was getting myself into and how to do it properly. And so, and if I look at Accelia Capital today, we've raised a $54 million fund. It's the largest first time fund in Quebec. And so we're super proud of that. But yeah, I think that the takeaway from that is that it's possible. And the ecosystem today, I think, makes it way easier for women to become entrepreneurs. And that's fantastic.
Yeah, and also VCs hopefully, because it's like you said, the stat is one third, but it's like I'd be curious to see that stat for female led GPs essentially, right? I'd be very curious to see like if you get more women, obviously on the investing side, I think that'd be there's also been a lack, and this classic image, like 10 white dudes around the table, right? So props to you also for raising that size of a fund, for not just for Quebec, I think just Canadian standards, maybe US standards, is it's a hell of a big fund. Maybe to talk about the fund for a second,
Yeah.
what was the biggest challenge, obviously, as a first time fund manager? Like, it sounds like you had to break down quite a few barriers to get too close. So curious to hear a little bit about the journey.
Yeah, it's a great question because today it looks easy. It looks like we rode this great wave of, ESG and of diversity. But it took us 2 years to fundraise before we closed it in December 2021. And in the very beginning, when we started having these conversations, a lot of people were doubtful about our capacity to find enough deal flow and the need for a fund like ours. And we just stuck to our guns, Christine, who's my co founder, and I. And we just trailblazed ahead. But what really, really helped us in the very beginning is that we decided that this was going to be beyond Christine and I. So we went to see 20 of the top business women in Quebec who aren't normally LPs in VC funds. And we said, will you sign us a check, but will you also allow us to use your picture in our fundraising deck? And within 5 days, we had 20 women saying yes. And we're talking about, really amazing women who have led important businesses. I'm talking about Monique Leroux, who used to head the Desjardins Movement. We have Melanie Dunn. We have Mrs. Bronfman from Claridge. We have, Marie-Josée Lamotte, Isabelle Bété. I wish I could name them all. We have 20 of them. But within 5 days, we had our first million. And then we thought, okay, so if those amazing women believe in us, then there's no reason we cannot raise a proper fund. And that just gave us sort of the wind in our sails to forge ahead and to decide that there's a need. We know the entrepreneurs want and need it, and we're going to get it done.
So if I understand the story correctly, you had no anchor LPs. You went directly to these 20 individuals and solicited them, and that basically they became your anchors. Is that correct?
It's correct, yes and no, because Investissement Québec followed very quickly. And I know we're not doing politics today, but kudos to Mr. Fitzgibbon, who gave us a meeting in the fall of 2020. And he got it right away, and it was a tough meeting because we were in confinement and we didn't have a meeting through a screen, so it was literally just a phone call trying to explain what we were trying to do, where we were going with this fund. And after about half an hour, he said, "Okay, I get it. I think a fund like this needs to exist in Quebec." And soon thereafter, we got a term sheet of up to $25 million from Investissement Québec. And this is all public information, so I'm not revealing anything. But so our actual anchor investor was Investissement Québec, and we're super happy and proud of that. But the initial spark was those 20 women.
Yeah, that's a great story. That's a great story. You also mentioned it took 3 years, right? Where it's like, I think the average time is like 2 years. Okay, sorry.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
was there
to
any
give you.
point in time, and I've heard this from other fund managers, where it's like, it's so friggin' hard that, you're like, why am I doing this? And like, you're not sure. And like maybe moments of doubt, like, or, did you just have the endurance and stamina to just push through? I imagine there must have been, dark periods in that time. It wasn't all like, hey, people sending you money, right?
No, yeah, no, it was like you said, it's freaking hard. Okay, there's no doubt. And I had a really early conversation with Jacques Bernier from Terralis, he's someone who's sort of mentored me through the years as an entrepreneur. And I had asked him, about the opportunity to perhaps raise a fund, and he had said, it's tough raising money as an entrepreneur. It's way harder to try to raise money for a fund. But this being said, once we got those 20 women on board, and those women, especially Monique Leroux, opened some amazing doors for us. Once we had the government in, we sort of knew that this was going to happen. We didn't know the magnitude of it. We didn't know that we were able to raise over 50 because our minimum close was 40. But I think from then on, from the moment that we had that term sheet from Investissement Québec, we truly believed and we just forged ahead.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And I'd like to unpack your fund strategy, right? Because I know at the high level, it's about investing in female entrepreneurs, but maybe at a level below. So types of companies, do they need to, women have to have a majority stake? How does it work with multiple partnerships? So curious about your investment thesis and how you think about deploying.
Yes, and so we're a proper tech fund, and sometimes people forget that yes, we support women-led businesses, but at the basis, Christine and I are both tech entrepreneurs. We both sort of fell into technology very early on in our careers, and so this is our focus. Also, I went to get a certificate in artificial intelligence from MIT during the pandemic, so we are, in every sense, a tech fund. But this being said, our primary sort of filter is the company co-founded or led by at least one woman who has a predominant role, and we take that KPI extremely seriously. And so that's our first KPI. Then is it an interesting technology, and is there a global market for it? Then we have mostly the same type of I would say investment proposal that other VC funds, other tech VC funds have. Is the team great? Is this company going to do 10x in the next 5 years? But it's interesting because if you look hard enough, there are a ton of women who are leading incredible businesses. And so that was our most pleasant surprise, I would say. The deal flow is absolutely there, and the deal flow the quality is amazing.
Yeah, a common trope, I guess, in the VC world is, how can I be helpful, as the common joke. And it seems like because you've been so niche and narrow that people are attracted to you. How do you then support female entrepreneurs? Like, is there outside of capital, is there anything additional that you bring to the table?
Yes, actually, those 20 women. And so, beyond the check that they've made as LP, and beyond, allowing us to use their picture in our fundraising, those women are also there to support portfolio companies. And so we've sort of just created this amazing ecosystem of super powerful, knowledgeable, and connected women who are there to help. And so when we talk to entrepreneurs, they're super excited about that because we start with a check, right? Because mentoring is really nice, but if female founders don't receive their fair share of venture capital dollars, they'll never be able to have a global impact. And so we start with a check. But once we invest, we have this ecosystem of 20 women who all have like different kinds of expertise. And also the fact that Christine and I are entrepreneurs, we understand what they've been through. I mean, I've been in those entrepreneurs' shoes, and that's the hardest part for me is to say no, because we're in the business in VC, unfortunately, to say no more often than we say yes, and that's the hardest part for me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, like you said, you have that empathy of being able to, you've been on the other side of the table. You founded tech companies. You know what technology is. Do you expect a different return profile for your fund versus other tech funds? And like, I imagine the contrarian view is like I actually might outperform other tech funds because female entrepreneurs are so underrepresented that you get kind of this unique deal flow that is overlooked. So maybe that might be the contrary to you. So curious to hear you about like your expectations.
And so you got a secret sauce pretty well. That's exactly our thesis, actually, is that we saw it as an opportunity for better returns. Of course, we still have to do the work. We're only starting now to deploy capital. But our thesis was to say, so there is this untapped niche. Okay, there's about 30% of new tech businesses that are co-founded or led by at least one woman, and women still get only between 2 and 10%, depending on how many women or how you look at a female founder. But they only get between 2 and 10% of the VC dollars. And so there's a gap. So it doesn't take a math whiz really to understand that it creates an opportunity. But we'll know down the line if our thesis was right. But there's been some really interesting studies from the Boston Consulting Group that have studied, I believe it was 350 startups over 5 years. And the ones that had a female founder outperform in revenue by 30% more than the male only teams. And so, there's been enough, I believe, studies out there to prove that diversity brings better results. And that's the whole basis of our investment thesis.
Yeah, so it's fascinating to hear you, Anik, about how it's the issues on the demand is not on the demand side. So it's not female entrepreneurs because, like you said, it's 33% and growing. It's on the VC side. So which is fascinating because I imagine like in my like maybe naive view, it's like, oh, VC is cold calculating, they just want a return, but it sounds like there's still a disconnect there, right? So it seems like there's still a lot of work to be done on the VC front.
Well, for sure, because if you look at that other statistics, which is really interesting to look at, it's only 10% of GPs who are female in North America. And there's an unconscious bias where, as an investor, you invest in what looks like you. Okay, that's been proven also, and it's not a conscious bias. It's just what you as a human being, or I as a human being, will naturally do. And so bringing more women in GP roles does help create more opportunities for female founders to get venture capital. This being said, I'm super happy to see the institutional LPs demanding those types of KPIs now with all of the funds. And so for us, we make it's in our DNA, right? We make it the reason why we're here today is to invest in women. But I'm seeing this concern or this wish happening with my colleagues, even male colleagues in other funds. At least there's a consciousness maybe that wasn't there before, or a certain form of care now. And so I think that we'll see more and more diverse teams, founding teams being, receiving their fair share of venture capital dollars in the future. It's looking way better, certainly, than when I was an entrepreneur 20 years ago.
Is there anything that can be done to accelerate this change? Do you think like the stigma, like are there any actions? I know it's moving, seems to be trending in the right direction, hopefully, but I imagine there's things that people can do like outside of, I imagine one is awareness, but I'm curious maybe if you've given some thought.
I think it all starts with the money. So if the institutional investors and LPs decide that diversity in various ways, right? There's cultural diversity, there's gender diversity, there's a bunch of diversities. We decided to attack the fact that women weren't getting their fair share of venture capital dollars. But I think the fact that for institutional investors now those KPIs are super important changes the needle all of a sudden, because I think the best way to make changes is changing who and how money is allocated, in my opinion.
Yeah, I like that. It's like it starts with the money. It's like let's it's a very cold rational. It's like if there's more money that goes into it.
Yeah.
Um, any promising sectors? Like I know you said tech, but tech is so big. Like curious if you've seen more deal flow from any specific sectors. Um, yeah, very curious is like there might be a natural, let's say, inclination for femtech or maybe health, health tech. Curious, I could be completely wrong. Maybe it's a bunch of enterprise software. So
We get everything, but you're right. There's a lot of health tech and med tech and digital health companies that are owned or led by women. This being said, I'm going to say something super unpopular, okay? I like artificial intelligence when it's used properly and when it goes beyond the hype. Because I think that the companies that do use data science and that have those capacities will create extra value in their tech businesses that maybe more traditional tech doesn't have. And so, despite the fact that I know AI has had some bad rap in the last few years, I still think that if you move away from the hype and you just really look at what does artificial intelligence actually do in terms of value creation and heightened product or service, I still like it. So for me, it might just be my own bias.
yeah, I was the one thing I would maybe push back. First of all, I agree with you, but I think where I'd push back is where it's you have an unpopular opinion. I think everyone in tech knows this. Like it shouldn't be a surprise that any product you build today, if there isn't some kind of component of machine learning, you're going to be behind A1 essentially, right? So the progress is a bit too much, but we're at, I think, the point you mentioned is that we did go through a hype cycle, particularly in this market. We won't name names, but there was a hype around it. But I think most software companies have this embedded already day one. They just don't call it AI. It's like that joke, right? It's like
There you go.
it's machine learning is written in Python and AI is written in PowerPoint. It's the it's the joke I always use.
I like that one. I'll copy it. Thank you.
So going back to female entrepreneurs, right? So I imagine you want to encourage more, women to get into it. What do you think we need, to get that, 33% number to 50%? Is what's there left to be done? Like I imagine, in at least in my view, it's like I still feel there's not enough women entrepreneurs. So like, I'd love to pick your brain.
Yeah, so the first thing is to encourage young girls to go into science. I mean, science is not for everybody, but this being said, I think if we encourage more girls to go into science, I think that we create a better path for them to become tech entrepreneurs. You can become a tech entrepreneur if even if you have a business background. It's not, or you could have a legal background. Doesn't matter. But for sure, if you start with science, you have sort of you're ahead. Um, the second thing that I've seen, especially in the younger generation, and I'm super encouraged by it, is we need boys on our side. We need boys and men to want more women. For the simple reason that it creates better value, it creates better results. And I find that, the younger generation, um, of young men coming out of college actually are very aware, and that's what they want. And we're hiring right now, and in a lot of interviews that I'm doing with young men, I'm surprised by how they get frustrated when they have all male teams in their technology investment sectors. And so I'm super encouraged by that. To me, it's a battle that we all have to lead together to want that diversity. And so for me, to have you guys on our side definitely helps.
I'm doing my best. But I want to go back to your background experience as an entrepreneur. I'd love to hear what's been the biggest difference as being that running your own fund as a VC versus running your own company as a founder, CEO. The biggest, let's say, differences between the two.
Well, in a way, it's very similar because starting a fund, it's like starting a startup. The only thing is that you have a set amount of managing fees. So if you manage those fees properly, you don't have the ups and downs in revenue that you would have in a startup. This being said, I'll be super transparent with you. Those 2 years of fundraising and were extremely the learning curve was extremely steep. I'm not from a finance background. I'm from a business and tech background, and so there was a lot of learning along the way. To do models and to do all sorts of there's a lot of legal work also to put together a fund. And so today I would say I'm much more on my X because that part I have learned. We still have reports to do for our LPs naturally, and the reporting is pretty strenuous. But now I'm also in a capacity that when I'm talking to entrepreneurs, I know their world, I know their technology, I know what they're doing, and so it's sort of the reward. It's sort of the candy after all this work, um, to be able to work with entrepreneurs. That's the most exciting part, and it's where also I find as GPs we can have the most impact. And so the rest is just really there. We need a proper structure to be able to support those companies and to support the reporting of how we invest in those companies. But at the end of the day, our job is to invest in good companies and help them get to that Series A and beyond.
Yeah, it sounds like you're most passionate about helping entrepreneurs and like shaping the future to a certain extent, right? Which is kind of the job, right? So it's like having that impact. Are there any parts of the job that you find more challenging? And like, I don't know, maybe we could talk about managing LP relationships, but maybe off camera. But curious if like things that are okay, this is still a learning curve, still a challenge.
Well, for sure. I mean, there's a lot of reporting to do, and way more so than when I was a tech entrepreneur. We just had like financial results to send in, 4 times a year to our investors, and that was about it. This being said, I have tremendous respect for my LPs because I know I can learn from them. So beyond those 20 women who have invested in our fund, when you work with Investissement Québec and when you work with Terralis and Fonds d'Action and Fonds de Solidarité FTQ and Banque Nationale, um, there's an opportunity to learn there from all of those people. And what I've found is that our LPs are really there to support us. They want us to succeed. And so their questions and their requests for reports is really based on what they need to see as a whole picture to see if they, where and how we're doing. But this is 6 months after the closing of the fund. Maybe I'll tell you something different in 6 years from now. But no, we're very fortunate. We have good LPs. Yeah.
You mentioned 6 years, right? It's like starting a VC fund is not a get rich quick scheme, right? It takes a long time for the returns to pay off, right? Like you mentioned, 5 to 10 years. Is there a bigger vision for the fund? Like, I know you're focused on Canadian, mostly Quebec startups.
Yeah.
There are other, female focused funds that have emerged as well. So curious if is there a bigger vision, expand beyond the borders? So yeah, I'd love to hear you.
Yes, absolutely. I'm going to tell you a small little story that I'm super proud of. In New York, there's a fund that's called the Women's Fund, in which Melinda Gates has invested, and they recently raised $58 million, and they're the largest private VC fund in the world to invest in female-owned and led businesses. In Quebec, we raised 54, and you'll say, okay, it's US dollars. I understand, but just in Quebec, we raised 54. And so I'm super proud already with what we've been able to achieve with the fact that we're a smaller economy than New York, that we're able to raise this kind of capital for female entrepreneurs. To me, it's like a huge success story to begin with. But then for Fund 2 and Fund 3 and Fund 6, yes, of course, we'd love to go global with the fund, probably more across Canada in the second fund. And then there's no reason. I mean, I've worked 4 years in the States, so it's a market I know super well. I'm already making connections with, US VC funds, perhaps for Series A for our own portfolio companies. And so absolutely, it'd be great to see this Quebec success be able to make babies across the world.
Yeah, export it and maybe get Melinda Gates as your next LP as well. Like you said, like you had already 20 women LPs. I think you need, get she has, I think apparently she has money. So
You're probably right, but I'm amazed by how quickly when we solicited them, the Quebec business women were there. They really showed up, and they're involved. Like they can't wait, for us to bring into looking at companies and to helping out. So it's amazing.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And this has been such a joy. Final question for you would be: is if people want to reach out, connect, learn more about Accelia, what's the best way?
Yeah, so we have a website. Obviously, it's accelia.bc. I'm on LinkedIn, and we're still structuring the fund. So we're doing our best to respond to everybody, and we've had like great visibility with the fund, and so we have a lot of requests, lots of demands. But both Christine and I are dedicated, and the good companies will get funded, and we can't wait to meet the amazing female founders out there.
Annick, merci beaucoup. C'était un plaisir.
Merci à toi. Thank you.